name is Mike Phillips, and today we're going to look at the super high quality German engineered flex power tools. Now, most tools used in the detailing industry are made using what's called a global manufacturing process. That means they're sold globally into all different types of industries, including tools for cutting and grinding steel, cutting and grinding concrete, and then of course buffing out cars. But the flex power tools are specifically designed to do nothing but polish paint. And here's why this is important. The average clear coat finish on a new car is only 2 mils thick. Now a post-it note is about 3 mils thick. That means this post-it note is thicker than the clear coat on your car. And for this reason, you need everything working to your advantage when you go to buff out a car in your garage. So let's take a look at the flex power tools. Today, we're going to take a look at 3 different flex polishers in 2 different categories. The first category is the dual action polisher. The second category is the rotary polisher. Now, the Flex 3401 is a true dual action polisher. It's forced rotation dual action. That means it's going to rotate a pad and it's going to oscillate a pad at the same time it's rotating it. That's the Flex 3401. Then we're going to take a look at the Flex PE14. This is a compact, lightweight rotary buffer with an RPM range of 400 to 2100 RPM. And we're going to take a look at the Flex 3403. This is also a compact, lightweight rotary polisher, and it has an RPM range of 1100 to 3700 RPM. And of course, we'll take a look at some of the different backing plates and pad options for each one of these tools. First, let's take a look at the Flex 3401 forced rotation dual action polisher. Now, out of the box, it comes with a backing plate already attached. This is a 5.5 inch diameter backing plate, which lets you use 6 inch and larger buffing pads. It comes with an Allen wrench, and you can use this to remove the backing plate should you want to use a different size. You can also use this to remove or adjust the handle. Some people like to use this without the handle, and it comes with these little plastic screws, and you use these to replace the bolts to hold the handle on, to put them in place to hold the cover on. So the head's covered and shrouded in plastic. Now on the top of the tool here, there's a lock mechanism. Okay, now this is recessed into the housing here, so you can't accidentally depress it while the tool's running. That way you don't harm any component of the polisher. And this is used to lock this in place while you're changing backing plates to get that screw loosened up. Now, as far as the fit and finish goes, excellent. It's very well balanced. Has what's called a forward bell handle. Of course, you've got the length of the body here and then the rear handle down here. And because of this length here, you have a lot of leverage over the tool. That makes it easy to control. Now there's a trigger switch down here with a lock mechanism on the other side. What this means is you can depress the trigger mechanism and then lock it into place. That way you don't got to hold the trigger in the entire time you're buffing. There's a variable speed dial right here, and what this is for is to bring your OPMs up or to bring them down. And it's conveniently located right here so your thumb can control it. And here's where this is nice. When you first start out buffing, the first thing you want to do is spread your product out. And you can do this on a low setting, low OPMs, and then after you get your product spread out, take your thumb, bring the OPMs up, start going to town buffing out the car, and you don't have to worry about slinging any product anywhere. So that's a nice feature there. Now it comes with a 13-foot long cord that's rubber encased, okay? And this is nice because it's not going to coil up and bind like inexpensive vinyl coated cords. Plus, should you touch the paint with it, because it's soft rubber, it's not going to scratch the paint. Now these use what are called hand machine ground gears, which are heat treated for long life and quiet operation. Most of the time the gears on these other tools out there are stamped, so they're going to be louder, not going to last as long. The coils are vinyl coated to keep dust and other debris from getting in there, causing them to fail prematurely, and there's a 7-function microprocessor in all flex paint polishers to help control and monitor and protect the tool. So let me go ahead and set up and I'll show you how to use this. The first thing you want to do is align and attach the pad so it's centered to the backing plate. When starting out with a clean dry pad, you need to prime the pad. You do this by spreading out and working in the compound or polish you're going to use. By priming, you ensure 100% of the pad surface goes to work for you as soon as you turn on the polisher. After you prime the pad, then add a little extra to the surface. This is called your working product. If the finish in your car looks like this black AMG, that is completely filled full of swirls and scratches, water spots, road film, oxidation, let me show you how to use the Flex 3401 to remove these defects and restore a factory new looking finish. Now, I've already placed a tape line down here on the trunk lid so I can show you the before and after results. I've also already placed a foam cutting pad onto the backing plate and centered it up so it's true. The next thing I did is I primed my pad with the polish I'm going to use, and now I just want to put some working product on. This is the product I'm going to actually use to work the defects out of the paint. Now, a little tip here. Anytime you're machine polishing paint, what you want to do is place the cord over your shoulder just to keep you from dragging it up and down onto the paint as you're polishing. The next thing, you never want to turn this on until it's in contact with the paint. That way you don't throw splatter everywhere. So now what I'm going to show you is how to do what's called a section pass to buff out one section of paint. And buffing out a car is just a matter of buffing out section by section. After you finish one section, move on to the new section, and so you've gone around the car and then you're ready for the next step. So let's take a look at this. Always place the pad against the paint before turning the polisher on. Then, using a slow speed setting, spread your product out over the area you're going to work. After you have the product spread out over the area you're going to work, turn the variable speed dial to the 5 or 6 setting and begin making slow overlapping passes in 2 directions. Each time you cover the area you're working one time, that's called a section pass. When removing swirls, scratches, water spots, and oxidation, you want to make 6 to 8 section passes before you stop buffing, wipe off the residue, and inspect the results. To achieve the highest quality results, you need to use good technique. That includes holding the pad flat to the surface, maintaining a slow and consistent arm speed. Arm speed is a term that means how fast or slow you move the polisher over the surface. Overlapping your passes by 50%. For any correction steps, you want to start out using firm downward pressure, and as you finish buffing that section, reduce the pressure to polish out. The Flex 3401 cuts through swirls and scratches in half the time of other DA polishers. And always remember to never lift the pad off the paint until you turn the polisher off and the pad stops spinning. Always use good technique anytime you're wiping compound or polish residue off the paint. To do this, fold your microfiber towel 4 ways. This will help spread out the pressure from your hand and give you 8 dedicated sides to remove residue with. Wipe off a portion of residue, then flip to another side and continue wiping the panel, flipping your towel often. This will help prevent inducing any towel-related marring, and then you can inspect the results. Once again, I have primed my pad and applied my working product. As you can see, I have switched over to a less aggressive polishing pad and polish. Remember, don't turn the polisher on until the pad is flat against the paint. Next, use a slow speed setting to spread the product over the area you're going to work. Once your work area is covered, adjust the variable speed dial to the 4 to 6 setting. As you noticed, I used a fast motion to spread my product out. Then to work the product, I slowed down my arm speed. For best results, you want to use a slow arm speed and make overlapping passes to remove any haze and maximize gloss and clarity. You will use the section pass technique for this step in the polishing process. Like before, start out with firm downward pressure for the first few section passes. Then reduce your downward pressure for the last few section passes. Polishing paint is an art form, not a grinding process. The 900-watt motor and forced rotation enable the 3401 to remove defects quickly, but the smooth nature and excellent balance of the 3401 make it a pleasure to use for the second step in the polishing process, which is to refine the surface. Here's a tip. To prevent any potential swirls or scratches as you're buffing out a car, you always want to work clean. So anytime you're finished with one step, make sure you remove any residue before moving on to the next step. Once again, don't forget to turn the polisher off and let the pad stop spinning before you lift the pad off the paint. Compounds and polishes don't need to dry, so after buffing a section, immediately wipe any excess residue off the paint. As you work through the polishing process, you need to continually increase your level of carefulness as you remove polish residue. Use your best technique and use your highest quality microfiber towels to prevent any wiping-induced scratches. Now, I'll remove the tape line and let's check out the before and after results. Before we inspect, I'm going to give the paint one more final wipe to remove any remaining residues that might block our view of the true results. To reveal the before and after results, I'm using a Brinkmann swirl finder light. This handheld light works just like the sun and will show any swirls or scratches if you've left any behind. Here's the before side, completely swirled out. And just check out these results. Crystal clear. Amazing. Well, as you can see, with 2 machine steps using the Flex 3401, I've completely removed all the swirls and scratches and restored maximum clarity to the clear coat finish on this car. So next, let me show you how to machine apply a wax. What that'll do is lay down a coat of protection, lock in the shine. After you've successfully removed all the swirls and scratches out of the entire finish on the car, let me show you how to use the Flex 3401 to machine apply a wax or a paint sealant and take all the work out of the process. Now, I've only worked on this one section, so I'm going to apply wax to the one section. I've already primed my pad. I've switched over to a soft foam finishing pad. I'm going to apply just a few drops of product on here. And the key for this is just to turn this speed setting down to the lowest setting, the 1 or the 2, and again, cord over shoulder, and don't turn it on until the pad is in contact with the paint. And what you want to do is make 2 or 3 passes over each square inch like this. And that's how you machine apply a wax or a paint sealant. Now, while this is drying, I want to go over here and share with you a couple more cool features about the Flex 3401. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the difference between the power the Flex 3401 forced rotation dual action polisher has compared to the other popular style of DA polishers. Now what I've done is I've taken the backing plate off a number of different polishers here just to show you how the drive mechanisms work. Now in this style here, the spindle here free spins. There's no mechanical connection to it and the motor. There's also no ring gear around the outside. And here's a typical backing plate. This threads into the spindle orbital, and the only way this is going to rotate is by bringing the speed up and through inertia. Now this is the Flex 3401. I've taken the backing plate off. It still has this free floating spindle assembly down here, but notice the outer ring gear, and on the back of the backing plate is a gear. And when these mesh together and you pull that trigger, that pad's going to rotate and there's nothing you can do to stop it. That's the primary difference. Now let me show you what that looks like in action with the buffing pad attached. So this is the Flex 3401, and this is forced rotation dual action. So it's going to rotate and oscillate at the same time. Just like that. Now I'm going to put this down on this glass window and show you another view. Okay, and there's nothing I can do to stop this pad from rotating. Here's what this means to you. When you go to buff out a car, the goal is to remove the swirls and scratches. And to do that, you want that pad rotating all the time. It's when the pad is rotating, it's removing the swirls and scratches. Now, if you're using the other style of tool, this style right here, look, I can take and just run that with my hand and make that thing spin and stop it. It's not a direct drive tool. And when you push down too hard or hold it at an angle or on the curve of a body line, that pressure alone will stop this thing. It'll stop it from spinning. Now let me show you what this looks like in action. Simply by pushing too hard or holding it at an angle, and that represents a curve on a body style, that pad's going to stop rotating, you're going to stop removing swirls. Flex 3401, I can't spin it by hitting it with my hand. I can grab it and spin it, and you can hear the gears as I turn that pad around. That's a direct drive tool. That's the primary difference. Now let's go back to the car and check out the results after I wipe that wax off. Our paint sealant's had plenty of time to dry. That's called the swipe test. Paint's clear and glossy, so I'm going to bring a clean microfiber towel, just gently wipe this off. Now the paint looked pretty good after polishing, but usually a coat of a premium wax or paint seal is going to even amp up the clarity and the gloss. Now let's check out those results. That is amazing. And it's pretty simple to do, actually. Okay, while I'm here, I want to share a couple tips for cleaning your pad. You know, as you're going around the car removing swirls, two things are going to be building up on the face of your pad. That's going to be what I call spent product. Okay, so your product when it's fresh, then you buff out the car and remove the swirls and scratches. The residue that builds up is what's called spent. It's used up, but there's still a residue on the face of the pad. Plus, when you're removing swirls and scratches, you're removing just a small measure of paint, and that paint is building up on your pad too. So here's two ways to clean that pad as you're working around the car. One is with a nylon pad conditioning brush. There's two ways to do this. One is simply just hold this against your leg and draw the brush over the pad. Rotate the pad a little bit and keep doing that until you can visually see all the excess product has been removed off the pad. Now if you want, you can turn it on, and you can also do the same thing. Basically, you just want to draw it from the center to the outside. That'll help kick off any of that excess product. Now another way to do this is using a terry cloth towel. Now I like to use terry cloth because the fibers are stout, okay, a lot more stiff than say a microfiber. That's why microfiber is so nice to wipe, polish, and wax off paint. It's gentle to the finish. Terry cloth, a little more stout fibers, but that stoutness helps to break up that residue. Plus, when it's dry, it helps to wick some of that moisture out of the pad, and that's going to help your pad to perform better, and that would look like this. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to pull any of that excess product off the terry cloth towel, and that pad's ready to go back to work. Now, let's go over and take a closer look at the Flex Rotary polishers. Flex makes two different rotary polishers. the Flex PE14 and the Flex 3403. The primary difference is the RPM range. With the Flex PE14, you have a range of 400 to 2100. With the 3403, you have a range of 1100 to 3700. For demonstration purposes, I'm just going to show the Flex PE14. Now let's take a look at some of the features. First of all, the Flex PE14 comes with what's called a stick or a side handle. You can remove this and put it on either side in case you're left-handed or right-handed. Now for me, I actually like to take and remove the handle altogether, and that's kind of cool because this tool comes with an ergonomic rubber enclosed head, so it's perfect for gripping, and this allows you to put pressure right on the top of the head, and that helps you to buff flat by keeping that pad flat to the surface. Here's another cool feature. It has a lock mechanism that's recessed, so there's no way you can accidentally push this down as you're operating the buffer. What this is for is when you're attaching or removing a backing plate or a pad. You simply push this down, then you can either fling that off or tighten it up, and it locks the gear drive to hold it still while you're attaching the backing plate to the spindle. Now, the other cool feature about this is it has the on-off switch down here conveniently located, and it has a lock mechanism. So after you pull the trigger, you can lock it, and that way you don't have to hold the trigger in the entire time you're buffing, like this. Okay, it has a variable speed dial conveniently located right where your thumb can get it as you're gripping the back of the handle. So that way you can adjust the RPMs on the fly, just like that. Very convenient. Now, something else that's really cool about the PE14 is this thing, since it's got that low RPM range of 400, when that happens, when you're buffing at low RPMs like that, a lot of times you can generate a lot of heat. So they've redesigned this with a fan inside here that pulls air in through the back vents all the way up through the front vents to keep this tool cool while you're using it. It also comes with a 13-foot rubberized cord, just like the Flex 3401. That way if you rub this against the paint, you're not going to scratch the paint. It also doesn't kink up or coil up like cheap, inexpensive vinyl coated cords. Anyway, so that's some of the features. It also has the 7-function microprocessor that controls all the electric functions, plus protects it from any kind of harm should there be a power outage or should it overheat. It'll shut this off so you don't harm the tool itself. Now, as far as using this, you can use a multiple different variety of backing plates and pad sizes. Let me show you a few different ones. First, I'm going to start out with this flexible backing plate with a wool pad, and anytime you're going to use a wool pad, one of the first things you want to do is you want to clean it. To do that, you use a spur. So I'm just going to take and set this against my leg, and I'm going to run this across the face of the pad, and I'm just going to stay from the inside towards me. You get over in this area, you could actually throw that into your face. So you just want to stay from the inner circle to the inside of the pad. That would look like this. Okay, and the reason you want to do that is just to make sure there's no dirt or particulates on the face of the pad, so when you go to start buffing, you put swirls in from the particles that are on there because they could scratch the paint. So you always want to clean your pad, and to do that you use a spur. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is how to remove swirls. If you remember, I removed all the swirls with the 3401 on this side. Now I'm going to take them out on this side, only I'm going to use a rotary for that. And I'll show you 3 different pads for that. First, the wool pad. For that I'm going to use a swirl mover, and I'm going to show you a technique called picking up your bead using the 10 at 10 technique. First I'm going to lay down a bead of product, and usually I make a bead of product for my initial pass about as long as a pencil and about as thick as a pencil. And I took a backing plate and I marked this like a clock, and this is how this works. Here's the 12 o'clock position. If this is on your pad, this would look mounted like that. What you're going to do is you're going to lay your buffing pad down against the paint, and you're going to run that bead in at the 10 o'clock mark. You're going to put it down flat, then lift it at about 10 degrees, and then push that towards that bead. And as soon as you get to the back of that bead, you're going to lay the pad down flat, and then you start spreading your product out and then start buffing it. And what this is doing is when you look at this, this thing is spinning clockwise. You're going to be picking that up at the 10 o'clock. When this is rotating, it pulls it into itself instead of slinging it out everywhere. That would look like this. As soon as I get past that bead of product, I lay the pad down flat, spread my product out to the area I'm going to work. Once I have my product spread out, then I just want to start making slow, overlapping passes, and then let the wool fibers and the abrasives and the polish start removing all those swirls and scratches. Now I started out at the 600 RPM range, and that makes it really easy to pick up your bead on the fly. But now that I've got my product spread out, I'm going to bump this up to just a little over 1,000 RPM. And that's going to help me just to take and remove all those swirls really fast, real easy. And that's how you use a wool pad with a rotary buffer. And then of course you can see I've got product and spent product, and of course I'm removing a little paint. So after buffing each section, again, you want to take and just clean that pad just like that. Okay, now let me show you how to use a foam pad on the PE14. Okay, I'm going to switch over to a smaller backing plate. This is matched up to some 5.5-inch foam buffing pads. And anytime you're using a rotary buffer, you need to do your very best job of getting that aligned so it's completely true, so it rotates completely in a circle. There's no wobble to it at all. Let me go ahead and wipe this residue off, then I'll lay down another bead and show you that technique again. Okay. Again, I laid down a strip of product. We call it a bead of product, about the size of a pencil. I've got my foam pad on. I'm going to turn this down to the number 1 setting, that's 600 RPM. I'm going to pull the trigger, lock it into place, cord over shoulder. I'm going to set my foam pad against the paint, just lightly. I'm going to pick it up at 10 degrees, run that bead right underneath the pad, so then I get past it, lay it down flat, and again, spread the product out. You do that first, so your product's spread out, then you can slow down and just make nice, slow, overlapping passes. And I'm pushing down fairly firmly here because I want to engage the abrasives with the paint, and that's how you remove the swirls and the scratches. And here's a tip, if you're new to the rotary buffer, it's a lot easier to learn with these smaller pads like this than the larger pads. Then as you develop some skill and experience, you can always jump up to the larger pads. Okay, let's wipe that off and inspect the results. Well, it looks like I've removed all the swirls and scratches. So the next thing we want to do with the Flex PE14, switch over to a much less aggressive pad and a finer polish, and then repolish the same area just to make sure there are no swirls left over. One of the nice things about the German engineered high quality flex polishers, you'll notice I can talk over them, and that's because they're quiet. That's going to be a lot easier over your ears. Okay. Make sure that's true. Set that on 1. Pick up my bead using the 10 at 10 technique. I did there for that last pass is I came off the trigger lock. That's 600 RPM. And then I held it in and fluttered it with just my index finger here. That's 400 RPM. That just for that last final pass, bringing that paint up to a super high gloss, removing all those swirls. Okay. Now we'll wipe that off, inspect the results. Then after this, you can go ahead and apply a wax or a paint sealant like we did earlier. But I want to show you something else that's really cool that takes advantage of the lightweight, compact size of the Flex PE14 rotary polisher. And that's what I call surgical buffing. And the benefit, that looks good. The benefit to having a lightweight, compact body is what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an extension on here. And I'm going to put a 3-inch backing plate so I can put these 3-inch pads on there and I can see what I'm doing because I don't have this massive head like normal polishers have. They're in my way of seeing what's going on. So here I've got a 3-inch flexible backing plate on an extension. It's actually technically called an adapter, but I call it an extension because it extends the backing plate away from the polisher so I can see what's going on. Okay, I'll use the lock mechanism, like there, put my finger in there, lock that on so it's good and solid. I'm going to come down here, I'm just going to grab a polishing pad. I'll grab some swirl remover. I'm going to take and I'm going to show you how I can use this on this nice thin panel. That way I'm not running the pad over this edge or on this high point where this curve is. And I call this surgical buffing because it's when you get into the long thin panels or tight, hard to reach areas. Using the 10 at 10 technique, I'm just going to come down here in the same way, pick up my bead of product, and then work this small section on the panel here. Pick up my bead, lay the pad flat. Now look how easy it is to get in here and see exactly where I'm at with my pad. So I don't hit the emblem, but I get right up to it. And that's what I call surgical buffing, and it helps to have a lightweight, compact rotary buffer like the Flex PE14 because you don't got all this mass in the way so you can see what you're doing. And of course, after you buff out a section, you always want to clean your pad. For that, use a nylon conditioning brush. Steel spur would tear up the foam. Well, that's how you use the Flex PE14 compact lightweight rotary buffer with wool pads and foam pads. You could use these same techniques with the Flex 3403. The polishers are high quality, German engineered, fit and finish is excellent. You're going to love these, especially if you're brand new to rotary buffers because of their lightweight and compact size. Let's recap. Today we looked at the Flex 3401 forced rotation dual action polisher. Because this polisher rotates the pad and oscillates the pad at the same time, it won't burn the paint and it won't instill swirls. In fact, it's perfect for removing water spots, oxidation, swirls, and scratches. Then we looked at the Flex rotary buffers, the compact Flex PE14 and the 3403. They have all the power of a full-size rotary buffer in a compact, lightweight size. You can use anything up to an 8-inch wool or foam buffing pad, or like that technique I showed you, get down to the 3-inch pads for surgical buffing. Because they're compact and lightweight, you can buff out any of the large panels or get into those tight, intricate areas. So whether you're a professional in the body shop industry, a detailer, or an enthusiast just working on your own cars, and you're looking for a professional grade polisher, check out Flex Power Tools.